Welcome back to the deep dive. This is the place where we dig into stacks of source material notes, articles, transcripts, and we hand you the synthesized truth without all the hours of, scrolling and searching.
And today, we are tackling what might be one of our most demanding deep dives yet.
I think so.
We're going right to the foundations of personal transformation, talking about radical self-ownership, discipline, and the consistent action it takes to really change.
Right. And our source material for this, it's drawn from a transcript of a really popular self-development audio source. It's called Success Starts With You: How to Become Your Best Self.
And we should be clear from the get-go, this is not about, feel-good philosophy or soft motivation.
Not at all. It's actually a very demanding, almost clinical look at the internal operating system you need to build the life you say you want.
Yeah.
And it's brick by boring block.
Absolutely. So our mission today is, I think, really crucial. We want to synthesize the core arguments about your own responsibility, about the power of habits, and, maybe most importantly, about the necessity of choosing growth over comfort.
Exactly. We want to give you, the listener, actionable clarity. If you're tired of just talking about goals that never seem to happen, if you feel stuck in that gap between wanting something different and actually taking the steps, then this deep dive is, well, it's specifically designed to move you from just thinking about it to finally taking action.
And the source material doesn't waste any time. It lays down its core premise immediately. And there's really no room for negotiation.
What's that?
That all transformation has to come from within. Success starts with you.
Right. Not your circumstances, not luck, not finding some perfect mentor or waiting for some talent to just appear out of nowhere.
Exactly. It asserts that any lasting success is the result of internal decisions that are consistently, and this is the key word, executed.
Which demands an internal locus of control. And that's a concept that sounds really empowering, but it's also, I think, incredibly intimidating for a lot of people.
Well, it is. It's empowering because it means you hold all the cards.
Yeah.
But it's intimidating because it also means you're responsible for the hand you're currently playing.
For the state of the game right now.
The state of the game. And that's why the text it hits you immediately with what it calls the first truth. Look in the mirror.
Okay, let's unpack this one right away, because this is where the friction, that necessary friction, really begins. The source mandates a critical step that I think most people want to skip. It says, until you take full radical ownership of where you are right now.
The good and the bad.
The good, the bad, the progress, and maybe most critically, the mistakes. You simply cannot move forward.
Because if you avoid that ownership, you're externalizing the power. You're leaving it somewhere else.
You're waiting.
You're waiting. Most people operate on this assumption that they'll just wait for the world outside to get better. They'll wait for the economy to change, for a better boss, for their schedule to magically clear up.
And then they'll finally step up.
Right. But the material is so clear on this. Change doesn't come from the outside. It has to be generated from within.
And that takes a really profound level of strength, doesn't it? Because owning your current reality means you might have to face some truths that are, frankly, pretty uncomfortable.
It's extremely uncomfortable.
It takes real strength, a certain kind of humility to stand there and look in that mirror and admit that, maybe you're the one who let things slide.
Or that you haven't really been giving your best effort for months or maybe even years.
And that admission of responsibility, the source argues, that's not weakness. It's the ultimate act of courage.
It is. It's the moment where you seize back your power. The source argues that this avoidance, this refusal to take ownership, is the central root of that feeling of stagnation so many people have.
Because if you keep delaying the admission that you are the common denominator in everything,
All your successes and all your failures.
then you're just delaying progress. And people can spend years, decades, in that cycle of delay.
And the fundamental truth that you are responsible for your life, for all of it, is really the only foundation that's sturdy enough to support the kind of transformation we're even talking about.
So once you accept that internal truth, we can start to understand the resistance we all face. This brings us right into section 1, the foundational shift, ownership and honesty.
Right. And the first major hurdle the source identifies is what it calls the trap of blame and waiting.
This is where I think the synthesis of the material is so powerful. It details how blame is, it's an instant source of comfort. It's like a psychological anesthetic.
It is. People blame time. They blame a lack of money. They blame other people, their past, the system.
Anything and everything but their own consistent choices.
And blame feels good. It feels incredibly good in the moment because it instantly protects your pride, your ego.
Sure, if the problem is external, then my failure isn't really a reflection on my character or my discipline.
Exactly. It's just bad luck. It's a harsh environment. It gives you that temporary relief from, that internal conflict.
And here's where the source hits you with that really uncomfortable truth. Comfort is what kills your growth.
Hmm.
That momentary relief you get from blaming something else is the very mechanism that locks you into the cycle of being stuck. You're choosing comfort over confrontation.
Exactly. And because of that short-term reward, most people spend years just waiting for things to change before they'll change themselves.
They're waiting for motivation to strike like lightning.
Or for the perfect conditions to align, or for someone else to just step in and rescue them, or, make the path easier. And they live these frustrated lives wondering why nothing ever changes.
All because they are waiting for an external green light that is just never going to come?
But the power shift happens when you internalize the opposite idea. If your decisions and your avoidance and your lack of boundaries, if they led you into the mess,
Then new decisions can lead you out of it.
right, then new decisions, new boundaries, committed actions, they can lead you somewhere better. And that realization, that responsibility, is what the source defines as pure power and control.
So it's not weakness or failure, it's actually autonomy.
It is. It means you don't have to ask for permission. You don't have to wait for fate. If your life is off track, you created that situation, so you are the only one who can clean it up and redesign it.
There are some specific claims in the text here that are just so direct.
They are. The material asserts, the perfect time is when you decide that now is the time. There's no external signal. It's a choice.
And then there's the one about readiness, which I think is even more critical. If you wait until you feel ready, you'll never feel ready.
Ready comes after you begin. Confidence comes after you act.
This just completely flips the script on the usual self-help narrative.
It really does. We're often taught that you have to feel confident or motivated before you can start the business or tackle the hard project. Confidence is framed as a prerequisite.
But the source insists that confidence and readiness are rewards. They're things that are earned through momentum.
Yes. Discipline starts with a single choice, a committed action. It doesn't start with an emotional state. You build the psychological infrastructure of readiness by showing up, especially when you don't feel like it.
So if blame is that initial comfort, the thing you have to let go of first, then the next step is recognizing the more systemic problem.
Which is dropping excuses and facing reality.
And the material is just, it's brutal on this point.
It's completely uncompromising. It defines excuses as delays in disguise, and they quietly steal your progress.
Why do they exist, though? Psychologically, what's their purpose?
The main purpose is to protect your pride. And this is a key insight. If you never fully commit, if you never really give 100% effort.
Then you never have to fully confront the possibility of failure.
Exactly. The excuse keeps you safe from the emotional pain of failing. But that safety comes at a huge cost. It guarantees you will never reach your potential.
And that cost is cumulative, isn't it? The source warns that excuses, when you repeat them enough, they start to sound like the truth.
They shape your identity. You start to forget what you're actually capable of. You start to believe the limits that you yourself invented.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of deep limitation.
It does. And the material mandates a complete and immediate stop to using the language of avoidance.
It gets really specific. It says to drop phrases like, I didn't have time, or I wasn't in the mood, or I'll do it later.
Right, because those phrases, it claims, kill more dreams than failure ever could. Failure is just feedback. It's data.
But excuses, they're silent executioners of your ambition. They prevent you from ever getting the feedback you need to adjust course.
And this leads to a really important analysis, especially in our modern world, where everyone claims to be so busy all the time.
The idea that excuses are sometimes masked as productivity.
Yes, this is a very sophisticated form of delay, and it's often missed by people who are, objectively busy.
You mean an example?
Well, you might spend an hour answering non-urgent emails, or organizing your desk for the 10th time this week, or attending meetings that have a low impact. You're doing a lot.
You feel productive.
You feel productive, but you're actively avoiding the hard, meaningful, high-leverage activities that would actually drive real growth.
So that busyness becomes the perfect socially acceptable mask. It's an excuse for avoiding the work that truly matters.
You're confusing motion with progress. You convince yourself you've had a productive day because you're exhausted from doing a lot of non-essential tasks.
Which creates the perfect excuse for why you couldn't get to the most difficult thing on your list. I just ran out of time.
Precisely. The source demands that if you really want to grow, you have to identify those uncomfortable, high-leverage areas, and you have to tackle them first. That's where your potential is hiding, under all those layers of comfortable busyness.
Okay, so we've stripped away the blame, we've dropped the excuses. This brings us to the final piece of this foundational shift.
The clarity of self-honesty.
The source states that change doesn't start with more effort.
No, it starts with more honesty. And this means facing what's truly holding you back. And often, it's not the external things. It's raw fear of success or paralyzing pride or just a simple lack of discipline.
And if you're not ruthlessly honest about those hidden weaknesses, you can't possibly fix them.
You can't, which requires asking the tough questions, the ones that really sting when you're alone in the quiet.
Like, what choices have I made in the last week that I keep pretending don't matter?
Or, what story about my own limitations am I still hiding behind? These questions force you out of that comfortable but corrosive denial.
And that's the core conflict the source presents, isn't it? It's truth versus denial.
Yes, and it emphasizes so strongly that nothing changes in denial. Denial is a stagnant state. It's a mental holding pattern.
Change only comes when you actively and repeatedly choose truth over comfort.
Until you stop lying to yourself about what's really in the way, the wasted time, the ignored responsibilities, the destructive habits progress is just impossible. The truth might feel like a hammer blow in the moment.
But it's the only place you can start to genuinely rebuild.
And it's not meant to be a source of shame. That's important.
Right, because if you fall into shame, you're just back to blaming yourself, which is another form of stagnation.
Exactly. Honesty is about taking your power back. Once you stop running from reality, you can draw a line in the sand and say, from this moment forward, I lead my life with evidence and integrity.
So we've established the mindset. Ownership, accountability, ruthless honesty. But that internal conviction is, well, it's useless without the operational mechanics.
That's right. Now we have to move into the reality of your day-to-day choices. We enter section 2, the mechanism of change, habits and time.
If that mindset is the engine, then habits are the tracks the engine runs on.
A perfect analogy. This is where abstract decision-making meets the concrete reality of your daily routine. And we start with the silent rulers.
The source suggests that if your life feels off track, it's almost never because of one big, spectacular failure.
No, it's the small decisions that stack up over time. The source calls this the stacking effect.
And these little routines, they're often built on convenience, right? Doing what's easiest in the moment, not what's most intentional.
Precisely. We're talking about those automatic, thoughtless routines that really define 80% of your day. You don't even think about them.
And that lack of intention, that's the fundamental danger.
It is. It gives rise to what the source calls the control dynamic. If you don't deliberately control your habits, they will absolutely control you.
They're automatic behaviors, they require zero cognitive energy, and they offer these tiny, instant rewards.
Like scrolling on your phone the second your alarm goes off, or putting off the hard choice until the last possible minute. But they quietly accrue these enormous costs in progress and potential over time.
And this connects right back to the first section. The habits we adopt out of convenience are often the very ones that broke our life in the first place.
You can't fix your life if you're still living with the same routine that drove you off course. It's impossible.
The material then contrasts the unreliable nature of motivation with the absolute necessity of structure.
Because motivation is fleeting. It depends on your mood, the weather, how well you slept, external validation. It's all over the place.
But discipline is reliable.
Discipline is reliable because it relies on building a structure that is designed to make it hard to fail.
That's a great phrase, hard to fail.
It's about designing your environment to be anti-fragile. If you know you always struggle to read in the evening because you get distracted by your phone,
Then you put the phone in a different room.
put the phone in a charging locker in the kitchen and leave the book right on your pillow. You design your environment to push you forward. You're reducing the friction for the good habits and increasing it for the bad ones.
We have to realize, though, that the work required here is almost always unglamorous.
Deeply unglamorous. The source is very specific about this. It emphasizes these practical, almost boring habit adjustments.
Things like making your bed immediately when you get up.
Drinking more water, reading just one page a day, getting off social media the moment you realize you're just scrolling out of boredom.
These actions sound so simple, almost ridiculously so, which is probably why most people ignore them.
That's exactly why. They're chasing the big fix solution.
The idea that they need some major dramatic breakthrough, Some single piece of perfect advice that's going to change everything overnight.
But the source is so adamant on this point. Real progress is boring, unglamorous, and quiet.
It happens when you consistently decide to do what's right instead of what's easy, even when there's no emotional reward for it in that moment.
It's the consistency that matters, not the magnitude of the single action. Every time you follow through on one of those small, intentional habits,
Making the bed, putting on your workout clothes, even if you only plan to stretch for 5 minutes.
you build self-respect. You're building it through these tiny, invisible acts of self-control. It's like you're forging an internal reputation with yourself.
And the discussion of habits then naturally leads us to the context in which they all exist.
Using time as the ultimate resource.
Yeah.
The source draws a really powerful distinction here that I think we need to spend a moment on.
Yes, it frames time as completely irreplaceable. You can lose all your money, and in theory, you can make it all back again.
But time, once it's spent, is gone forever. The source argues that how you allocate your time is the most transparent indicator of how serious you are about your life.
So if you talk about these world-changing goals but you waste half your day, there's a huge conflict between your words and your schedule.
And that conflict renders your goals meaningless. They're just wishes. The problem for most people isn't the lack of time. It's a lack of intention around their time.
It's what the source calls the quiet loss that hurts the most.
Yes. It's not the huge, obvious chunks of wasted time. It's the accumulation of 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, just drifting through low-impact activities or putting off the single most important task.
And that time just slips away so quietly that you look up 6 months later and genuinely wonder where the year went.
It was consumed by these tiny, convenient evasions.
So using time motor isn't about filling every single second with activity. It's about intentionality versus filling.
You have to move from being a reactor, constantly responding to emails, notifications, other people's needs, to being a leader of your own schedule.
You decide what hours belong to your goals, and you build walls around them. You protect them ruthlessly.
This kind of clarity just cuts out the waste. If you don't know what you should be doing, it's so easy to slip into doing nothing or doing something easy that doesn't really matter.
And to help with this, the source emphasizes bookending the day. It calls it the power of the start and finish.
Your point hour sets the tone, both mentally and practically. If you start your day with chaos and distraction and reaction.
Checking social media or emails from Red.
Right. The rest of the day tends to follow that same pattern. It becomes frantic, disorganized. But if you use that first hour to align with your purpose, or tackle your highest leverage task, or just meditate,
Then everything else becomes easier. You've created momentum and self-trust right from the start.
and the last hour is about preparing for tomorrow. It's clearing your mind, reflecting on the day's work, what worked, what didn't, and resetting your physical space.
If you waste that last hour, you end up feeling like you're always playing catch-up, always starting from behind.
The overarching message is to just be ruthless about where your time goes. Stop pretending you have these endless reserves to just give away to low-value activities.
And this section culminates with a really critical behavioral distinction.
Rest versus avoidance.
According to the material, intentional rest, a planned moment of recovery, of stillness, of genuine leisure is not wasting time.
No, because it's chosen with intention, and it facilitates long-term performance. You need recovery.
But wasting time out of sheer habit, that's avoidance.
And that's the crucial difference that delays your growth. If you find yourself constantly trying to escape your life through habitual scrolling or gaming or binging shows,
You're avoiding the very work that would build a life you don't need to escape from.
exactly. The time you waste provides instant, easy relief, but it costs you infinitely more in the long run. It just piles up stress, guilt, and regret.
It's the difference between refueling the tank so you can continue the journey.
And just driving aimlessly around the block to avoid getting to the destination. One is productive, the other is destructive.
Okay, so we've established the mindset ownership and the mechanism-disciplined use of habits and time. Now we get into section 3, the engine of progress: action, discipline, and identity.
This is where all of those internal decisions finally get converted into external results. And we start with the hardest part,
Which is,
standing up and doing the hard things. And the central tension here is what the source calls the knowledge versus action gap.
this is a big one. The source claims the problem for most people is not a lack of knowledge.
Not at all. They know they need to exercise. They know they need to save money. They know they need to work on that difficult project they've known for weeks, months, sometimes years.
So the problem isn't not knowing, it's that agonizing resistance to not doing. It's the inertia that keeps the knowledgeable person completely paralyzed.
And the material is so clear on this. Nobody is coming to push you. Nobody is going to force you to get serious about your own life.
That is your sole non-delegable job.
It is. And where does real valuable growth actually happen? Not when it's easy. Not when the task aligns perfectly with your mood.
It happens in the discomfort. The source calls it growth in discomfort.
Real progress begins when it's uncomfortable, when it's inconvenient, and when it is the absolute last thing on earth you feel like doing.
So that moment of friction, that moment of choosing to rise anyway, that's when the most valuable internal change actually takes place.
Yes, the discomfort isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's proof that you're putting pressure on your limits, and that is the only way to level up.
And this ties directly into the concept of earning success.
Right. Life rewards what you finish, not what you say you'll do, not what you plan, not what you intend to start one day.
The life you want is not going to just hand itself to you. Earning it means doing the things when no one is watching.
When the motivation has completely vanished, and sticking to the commitments you made to yourself, even if they're tiny.
Keeping those promises to yourself in the quiet moments, that's what builds genuine character and internal strength.
It fosters a life you can actually be proud of. And the source gives some really specific examples of necessary action.
These are the tasks we always put off because they feel inconvenient, but they're so foundational to just feeling stable.
Exactly. Climb your space, fix your daily routine, ruthlessly cut the excuses, be willing to make specific sacrifices, and tackle the most challenging item on your to-do list first.
This is the unglamorous labor that shifts things from just a hopeful theory to a concrete reality.
And if you're looking for where that friction lives day to day, it's in the choice you make every single morning.
The growth versus comfort choice. This is a daily, granular decision that really determines the whole trajectory of your life.
The source identifies the default setting of the human condition, which is that most people never achieve radical growth because comfort is just the easiest, most accessible path.
It offers short-term relief, immediate psychological safety.
But it results in long-term stagnation. It's safe, it's familiar, and it's always available, just whispering at you to take the day off.
But the source has a different way of defining growth. It's not a feeling, it's a demand.
It is a mandate. Growth is uncomfortable, inconvenient, and it demands more from you than you initially think you have to give.
And when you avoid that demand, you avoid change. And that's what builds that incredible frustration and regret over time.
And here's a crucial psychological distinction the source makes. Regret doesn't primarily come from trying something and failing.
No. Regret comes from knowing, deep down, that you didn't give it your all, that you chose to avoid the difficulty.
The person who tried and failed can adjust, can learn, and can move on. But the person who avoided trying at all lives with the crushing burden of unfulfilled potential.
Knowing they accepted comfort instead of the demanding path.
Let's break down the time frame trade-off the source presents, because this is the concept that really makes the immediate struggle feel worthwhile.
It's the difference between sort of neurochemically driven short-term wins and delayed gratification.
We are constantly trading our short-term self for our future self.
Hmm.
Ease is the short-term win. It's a temporary dopamine boost or a reduction in stress.
But it comes with devastating long-term consequences. You feel good right now, but you're delaying progress, and the distance to your potential self just gets larger.
Exactly. Growth, on the other hand, is the short-term struggle. It involves discomfort and inconvenience and delayed gratification now.
But it builds sustainable long-term rewards later.
This reframes discomfort entirely. It's not a punishment. It's a necessary investment.
The feeling of friction is proof that you are actively moving away from your current static limits.
And the more you choose growth, the more you train your brain to accept that struggle as just the necessary entry price for the reward. You stop looking for the nearest exit, and you start looking for the fastest way through the challenge.
Next, we move to what is an absolutely critical internal component.
Building self-trust through accountability. And this starts with what the source calls the quiet test.
The quiet test. It's the simplest measure of character. What do you do when nobody's watching?
When there's no applause, no external recognition, no supervisor asking if you followed through, that's when your character and your mindset are fully exposed.
Anyone can perform in front of a crowd. But when you're alone, the truth of your standards really shows up.
And this directly impacts your self-confidence. The source points out that people who stay stuck are usually the ones who only perform when there's external pressure.
A deadline, a boss, a partner checking in on them.
Right. But when they're alone, they let things slide. And that relaxing of effort, that internal breaking of promises to themselves, is precisely what leads to crippling low confidence.
Because deep down, they know they can't rely on their own word.
They know they're not following through. And that internal awareness of their own inconsistency is a devastating blow to self-respect. You are essentially training yourself that your own word doesn't matter.
So the goal then is becoming self-led.
Exactly. The source encourages you to become someone who leads yourself, who shows up because you said you would, not because someone else is applauding or checking your progress.
You wake up, you decide the work needs to be done, and you just execute. No external permission, no cheering section required.
That internal reputation built in those quiet moments is the only strength that can't be taken away from you, and can only be built where you choose discipline over temporary relief.
Which brings us to the source's definitive statement on this.
Effort is the price you pay for growth. If you can't hold yourself accountable in the small things, no amount of advice, no program, no motivation will ever work. You are the foundation, and that foundation has to be solid.
And that brings us to the final and maybe the most advanced piece of this material.
Aligning actions with identity. This moves beyond just doing the work to fundamentally becoming the person who effortlessly does the work.
It's the concept of act first, become later.
Yes. Most people operate under the assumption that they need to wait to feel like their best self before they'll act like it. They wait to feel disciplined before they start a routine.
The source flips this completely. It argues that you have to align your current behavior with the intentions of your future self. Identity isn't a starting point.
It's a destination. And it's built moment by moment, action by action.
You can't think your way into becoming someone new. You have to act your way into it, immediately and imperfectly.
And the source says qualification comes from consistency, not feeling prepared. The gap between who you are and who you want to be is closed only through relentless action.
So if the future you is a runner, you put on the shoes today, even if you only walk a block.
You stop negotiating with laziness. And this means you have to track more than just results. It means tracking alignment.
What does that mean exactly?
It means you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, did I move like someone who is truly growing today? Did I manage my time like someone who is serious about their goals?
So progress isn't just measured by the outcome, the pounds lost, the money saved, but by how closely your daily choices matched the person you intend to become.
Precisely. And this framework for tracking those choices is just beautifully summarized in this powerful vote analogy that's in the source material.
This might be the most actionable insight of the entire deep dive.
I think it is. It's the ultimate tool for identity construction. The source states, every single decision you make is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming.
So it shifts the focus from the outcome of one single decision to the cumulative weight of all of your decisions.
Right. If you're trying to become a healthy person, every time you choose a nutritious meal, that's one vote for that identity. Every time you choose the easy takeout, that's one vote against it.
Let's break that down practically. When the alarm goes off and you hit the snooze button.
That is a vote for the identity of someone who avoids discomfort.
And when you immediately get up and make your bed.
That's a vote for the identity of someone who values order and discipline.
And these tiny daily votes, when they're aggregated over weeks and months, they fundamentally shift the evidence of who you are.
You don't become confident because you suddenly feel different.
Yeah.
You become confident because you have overwhelming behavioral evidence that you consistently choose growth over ease.
So consistent action, not words, not intentions, not plans, is the concrete evidence that your standards are non-negotiable.
That is the ultimate takeaway. You are constantly creating yourself with every tiny decision, every missed alarm, every moment of comfortable avoidance, or every necessary act of discipline.
You're building your identity brick by boring brick, and you're the only one holding the hammer?
And that profound shift from identifying with your past failures to acting immediately in alignment with your potential, that is where real, permanent transformation actually lives.
It requires you to stop pretending, stop waiting, and start proving through your behavior that you are absolutely serious about your own life.
That was an intensely challenging and very clear deep dive into radical accountability.
Let's bring this all home with a final summary and recap. The overarching theme of this material is that true transformation is entirely an internal job, and it relies on three critical, non-negotiable pillars.
First, you have to embrace responsibility completely. This means stopping the blame cycle, eliminating the excuses that are just masking your real productivity, and embracing self-honesty to confront what is truly holding you back.
Right, not the external factors you keep rehearsing in your mind.
Second, you have to commit to disciplined habits. You have to control your time and your routine, realizing that progress is unglamorous, it's quiet, and it happens through these small stacking choices built on intention, not on convenience or some fleeting motivation.
And third, you must choose uncomfortable action. You have to prioritize growth over short-term comfort, knowing that the easy path offers that momentary relief, but it guarantees long-term regret.
You earn success and self-trust by consistently doing the hard things, especially when no one is watching, and aligning your current behavior with the identity of your future self.
We've heard the core message throughout this whole thing. No one is coming to fix your life, and the source rightly insists that that is good news.
Because it means the total power to change is entirely, finally, in your hands. You don't have to wait for permission or the perfect day.
You give the permission to yourself right now.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. If we fully accept the premise of this deep dive, that you already know what needs to be done, and that you have the immediate ability to reset and grow, then we have to confront the final accountability. The source reminds us, your future isn't built by luck, it's built by patterns. So we challenge you to identify the one pattern, the one specific small action built on self-honesty that you've been repeatedly ignoring and that you must choose to start or stop today to cast a definitive vote for your best self.